January 9, 1947. Evening, Los Angeles. A young woman sits in the grand lobby of the Biltmore Hotel, a place dripping with marble columns, chandeliers, and the heavy perfume of wealth. She's waiting, or at least pretending to wait. She tells the man who brought her there, Robert "Red" Manley, that she's meeting her sister. But that's a lie. Her sister is hundreds of miles away. Manley, who has spent 2 days, several dates, and a lot of patience on her, finally takes his leave. He has invested money, time, and maybe even his heart into this young woman, but he can't make sense of her evasions. So he says goodbye. She waves. And Robert Manley walks out of the Biltmore lobby and drives to his home, the home he shares with a wife and child. The woman stays for another 3 to 4 hours. She sometimes stands up and walks to the bank of payphones as though expecting a call. She looks around, nervously, anxiously, waiting. And finally, around 10:30 p.m., she walks out of the lobby onto Olive Street, heading south. She wears a tan coat over a white collarless shirt, black skirt, black heels. The woman was neither a guest nor a customer at the Biltmore, and staff paid her little mind and only remember fragments of her stay. 6 days later, the woman's body is found in a vacant lot in a Los Angeles residential area, severed in half, brutalized, dumped in a place that seemed intended to be found. Within minutes of discovery, she becomes a myth and the subject of an unsolved murder mystery that has lingered now for nearly 8 decades. Who killed the woman known as the Black Dahlia? Why were police unable to solve her murder and bring the killer to justice? Why is she the source of so much fascination, the subject of books, movies, television programs, Halloween costumes, fetish magazines, tattoos, and pop culture? To answer those questions, we begin not with the severed body placed beside a neighborhood sidewalk, but back even further, to the life of the woman before she left the Biltmore, before the months of desperation in Southern California, before the journey west, back to New England 22 years before, and her early life. You think you know her story, the pretty girl who chased Hollywood dreams and met a grisly end. But the truth is far stranger and far more human than that. Before she became the Black Dahlia, she was Elizabeth Short, a daughter, a sister, a young woman who wanted to be loved and seen in a world that offered both in dangerous measure. Over the first 7 episodes of the eternal life of the Black Dahlia, we'll trace her journey across America, from the cold northeastern winters of her childhood to the race to improve her health as a teen in Florida, and later the love she found with a brave World War II pilot and then lost to tragedy, to the brutal months living on the edge in California, still hoping for a better story, and to the final week of her life, dissecting what we know for certain about her missing days and what we can dismiss or dispute about who ended the life of Elizabeth Short. Each episode reveals another fragment of the real person behind the myth, the girl who would become everyone's obsession and no one's responsibility. Episode 1. Dreaming Beyond Medford. Once upon a time, there was a small house on a quiet street in suburban Massachusetts. Inside lived a mother and 5 daughters, holding their family together after the unthinkable, their father's disappearance. Mother Phoebe worked as a bookkeeper. She was stoic, determined that her daughters would thrive. It's here that we meet young Elizabeth, shy, imaginative, delicate. Her father's absence leaves a silence that shapes her life. She grows up too fast, and yet never quite grows up at all. Her health is fragile, her lungs weak. Doctors prescribe what poor families could barely afford: a warmer climate. And so Phoebe sends Elizabeth away from the icy north to the home of friends in Florida, praying the endless sunshine will cure her daughter's lungs. But Elizabeth finds not just health in Florida, she finds an escape and her first opportunity at reinvention. This is where her story begins, not in violence, but in yearning. Episode 2, Golden Promise. California, the promised land of second chances and false starts. When Elizabeth learns that her father, Cleo Short, is alive and living near San Francisco, she boards a train west. She's barely out of her teens, driven by a mix of forgiveness and fury. She wants to believe in him again. She wants a father. But a month after she arrives, he throws her out. No safety net. No second chances. She takes work at a PX near Camp Cook, surrounded by servicemen, finding new friends and a chance at belonging. For a while, it's almost normal, until a late-night arrest for underage drinking ends it all. Elizabeth is expelled from California and ordered to return to her mother's home in Medford, Massachusetts. Before her departure, a policewoman named Mary Unkefer takes pity on Elizabeth, offering kindness and a place to stay. A week later, Elizabeth returns east, her pride shattered, but her hope intact. The first California dream ends in a mugshot and a long bus ride home, but she won't be staying with Phoebe for long. Episode 3, Love Letters from the Sky. Back in Florida after her disappointed return home, Elizabeth starts again. She finds work at a Miami delicatessen and begins to rebuild her life. It's 1944. The war is still raging, but on the beaches stateside, the world feels young again. And then she meets him, Major Matt Gordon, a decorated pilot with the 2nd Air Commando Group. Handsome, heroic. Their romance is brief, but it consumes her. When his plane goes down in India, she is devastated. And after that, something in her changes. She begins to tell stories, small embellishments that give her life sparkle, structure, and meaning. Maybe she was engaged. Maybe she lost a child. Maybe she was destined for more. This was how she survived, through story. Episode 4, Return to California. By 1946, California is calling again. A familiar face from her past, another flyboy, Lieutenant Joseph Gordon Fickling, invites her to join him in Long Beach. He's a steady, decent man, maybe even marriage material, and for a time Elizabeth plays the part. She goes to dances, walks the pier, and writes letters that sound almost happy. But Gordon Fickling's interest fades. Elizabeth, restless and broke, begins drifting again. Long Beach is where the dream of stability ends. Los Angeles, bright, dirty, seductive Los Angeles, is where the next act begins. Episode 5, Girl in Motion, Darkness in Bloom. In the late summer of 1946, Elizabeth Short finds friendship, hope, and desperation in Los Angeles. She rents cheap rooms, lives out of suitcases, and charms everyone she meets. She is 22 and looks younger, too young perhaps for the city she's in. She tells people she's waiting for a movie role, but she's really waiting for a break, any kind of break. And then she meets Mark Hansen. Hansen owns the Florentine Gardens, a nightclub glittering with danger and possibility. He's wealthy, older, and used to women orbiting him. He offers Elizabeth a place to stay. It's here that her story begins to tangle with Hollywood's dark underworld. Men with money, power, and appetites that could make or break a girl like her. Episode 6, Refuge by the Sea. By December, the arrangement with Hansen has soured. Elizabeth heads south to San Diego, maybe for a man, maybe for a clean slate. What she finds instead is a movie theater seat to sleep in, and a young usher who takes pity on her. Dorothy French brings her home. For nearly a month, Elizabeth lives with Dorothy's family. Quiet, polite, uneasy. She spends her days cleaning, waiting, and glancing over her shoulder. Sometimes she claims she's being followed. Sometimes she disappears for hours. The Frenches don't know what to believe. And then, one day, she's gone, leaving only a trail of questions. Episode 7, The Last Days of Elizabeth Short. In San Diego, Elizabeth meets a man named Red Manley, a salesman testing his own fidelity. She tells him she needs a ride to Los Angeles. He agrees. For 2 days, they travel north together, sharing stories, meals in diners, and the illusion of safety. Red insists nothing romantic happened. Maybe he's telling the truth. They arrive in downtown Los Angeles on January 9th. Elizabeth checks her luggage at the bus depot, says she's meeting her sister at the Biltmore Hotel. A lie she's told before. They sit in the hotel lobby as dusk falls. Then Red leaves while Elizabeth waits at the Biltmore, pacing the payphones, waiting for someone. Hours later, staff sees her leave, watching her walk away down Olive Street, into the evening, and into eternity. In the second half of The Eternal Life of the Black Dahlia, the story shifts. The woman disappears and the myth is born. In the next teaser, we'll walk through the morning her body was discovered, the chaos that followed, and the decades of obsession that turned Elizabeth Short into America's most infamous unsolved murder. But behind every theory, there's still Elizabeth. Who was she really? What did she want? And who decided her story would end the way it did? Was her killer the brilliant doctor who kept Hollywood's dirtiest secrets? A forgotten suspect buried in LAPD files? Or someone even closer to home? The answers and the myths await. Subscribe now to The Eternal Life of the Black Dahlia. New episodes, starting with our first, Dreaming Beyond Medford, air on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Every time we speak her real name, we return a fragment of humanity to a woman the world remembers only for the way she was murdered. This is H. Allegra Lansing. Until next time, may we remember Elizabeth Short not for how she was found, but for how she lived and how deeply she longed to be seen. This series is based on historical records, contemporary reporting, and archival research, all writing and narration by yours truly. Theme music is Black Screen by Ketsa. Link in show notes.